intelligent, but it is the most responsive to change. Have you ever heard that before?
Yes.
Yeah, that gets attributed to Charles Darwin. Guess what? He never said that. It is actually a direct quote from a 1960s textbook written by an LSU professor of management who was referencing Darwin, in his book, The Origin of the Species. But Darwin never said that. Now, sometimes that's never stopped speakers in the past from saying something like that. But no matter what the source is, those words ring true. It is not the strongest, nor the most intelligent, but those that are responsive to change that survive. Many successful speakers have changed. They have responded to change. Part of what happens within the NSA family is learning how to adapt to those types of changes. Let me share with you a story of a fifth grader. Fifth grader one morning woke up. His 1-year-old little sister grabbed a hold, jumped up, and accidentally put her finger in the fifth grader's eye. Now, if we all remember young children, those little fingers are very thin. They're very sharp. And so as the 1-year-old attempted to wrap her arms around the fifth grader, the fingernail came in the eye. Razor sharp. Dainty, pinky fingernail in the eye. The fifth grader put the child down, turned to mother, and yelled, "I can't see out of my eye." Immediately responding, they went to the emergency room. While in the emergency room, the doctors looked at everything and determined that a piece of the outer area of the eye had been torn. The cornea was damaged. So they placed a big white patch, taped it over the eye, and said, in 2 weeks, the eye will rest, it will heal, and all will be fine. So the one-eyed Jack goes to school the next day. And at school the next day, the teacher announces, we're all going to read from our textbook, one by one, aloud. So who wants to go first and volunteer to read from the book, the first paragraph? So people are looking and responding. The one-eyed Jack is very nervous about this. And so scans ahead to the smallest paragraph, makes sure that the read that paragraph word for word, know every word, know how to pronounce it, and are ready to go. So as they get to that point, and the one-eyed Jack is sitting there waiting and waiting. And now comes the paragraph. So the one-eyed Jack goes, "Oh, me! Please me!" And success. The teacher responds to the one-eyed Jack. Now here's what happens. The page turns. The one-eyed Jack can't see the page turn because there's a patch over their eye. The one-eyed Jack looks down and in a panic doesn't know what to do. And they're going, "Are you going to say anything?" So the person starts to read, stumbles, is embarrassed, doesn't know what's going on. Everybody in the class begins laughing. After all, it is 5th grade. The teacher recognizes this, stops the exercise, and begins to move on. Later that day, the teacher takes the 5th grader to her desk and privately asks the one-eyed Jack to read. The teacher then recognizes that the one-eyed Jack cannot read at the level of a fifth grader. Phone calls are made, conferences are set up, parents are brought in and informed that this person cannot read at the level that they should be reading at, and recommend a reading tutor. So a tutor is hired. The person not only loves to read, but becomes a very ferocious reader, gets really engaged. That fifth grader stands before you today as a speaker. The moral of this is that I then chose always to do oral reports rather than written reports because my language skills were lacking. The grammar, the written word was much tougher than the oral. It was so much easier to stand before a crowd of your peers in a classroom and speak than it was for me to write. I adapted to change. I took what was a negative and made the most out of that. Now, I'm not anything special. And I share that only as a testament that it doesn't have to be the strongest. It doesn't have to be the most intelligent. But it has to be the person who is responsive to change that can make a difference. We have change around us. In fact, isn't change really the only constant we can count on? It's going to happen all the time. So what does that have to do with anything about a nugget of wisdom for speaking? I too was going to talk about the 4 core concepts of NSA. I didn't know Maria was going to talk about that. So I had to adapt to the change today. Some may have noticed that I was standing in the back of the room for the last half hour trying to figure out what is Roger now going to say. Something came out. But we have those 4 competencies: eloquence, enterprise, expertise, and ethics. Here's the other funny thing. I have a 5th E. Now it has to be the 7th because you just added 5 and 6. My 5th E is maybe the most important mentor I have ever had in this industry. It's my good friend, Ed Skeen. 30 years ago, Ed and I met. He was 22, I was 2. "30 years ago, we met. He has always been a loving, caring, persistent friend, mentor, colleague, never afraid to tell you what you need to know, never afraid to help you, never afraid to pat you on the back, never afraid to assist you. Ed, I owe you a huge debt of gratitude."
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing is, I'm going to go back and sit with Ed, and now he's going to turn around and say, "Well, how much is that debt? And when are you going to start paying up?" Folks, that's part of the NSA family. My nugget today is we can talk about all the details. We can talk about the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7 E's of NSA. None of that matters. What matters are the people in the room. What matters are the relationships that you create. What matters the most is our ability to lift everybody else back up. We're loners. Most people don't realize it. Isn't it glamorous to be up on stage in front of everybody? You're the loner. You don't have a team of 100 people that you work with every day that you can share things with. Oftentimes, trying new material is difficult. There's nobody in front of you. We are the NSA family. And if you're not a member of NSA, join. Be a part of our group. It is important for you to know more about the people in the room. Our ecosystem is changing. We've all talked about all the changes that are taking place in the speaking industry. We change the climate by being in the room. We change the climate by being a loving, caring family. Make the most of an NSA opportunity. Make the most of an NSA membership. Because it's not the strongest, nor is it the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. I have responded to change many times in my life and career. I have responded to that change because of the love and caring of other people in this industry. So I finally ask you, will you be a part of this engaged, evolving, adapting NSA family? I hope you